When the doctor gives you 3 days to live and they don't know what's wrong with you, all you can do is hang on to God because you desperately want to live. I was 23 years old when I was told I had diabetes. It made sense to me because all my grandparents, my mother at the end of her life was a double amputee and ended up on dialysis. All my family had diabetes. The difference between me though and my family when I was 23 years old is that I was extremely active and very fit. I had just graduated with a degree in physical education. I just finished 2 years of being a Rams cheerleader, Los Angeles Rams cheerleader. Back in the day, cheered in Super Bowl 14. Fitness actually was my life at the time, but what I learned back then is that there's more to it. Nutrition plays a huge part in your health. And so the one thing I had in common with my family is that I was raised on the standard American diet. And so once I was told that I had diabetes, I decided to change my diet. I became a vegan. That means I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating dairy and processed foods, even all types of sugar. I only ate fruit. And I just believe that the body heals itself, that our Creator made it miraculously to do that. And so I knew that if I gave my body every opportunity and by eating healthy, nutritious foods, that I should be able to heal myself. And lo and behold, after 3 months on a vegan diet, the doctor said they saw no sign of diabetes. You know, it's been 37 years. I'm still a strict vegan, and I still don't have any signs of diabetes. These cows are safe in my family. They actually have a real good life. Anyway, my story does take a turn for the worse. After I gave birth to both of my daughters, my doctors never found the fact that I had gestational diabetes. I actually ended up getting so sick that I had problems doctors didn't even know how to deal with, and I stopped eating and no one knew what was wrong. I went to specialist after specialist. They never could figure it out. All they said is, you're stressed. I got so sick that I got down to 90 pounds and no food, no water was going down. I was living for 3 months on drops of olive oil. You know, and one doctor finally told my husband in front of me, she's anorexic, she just needs a vacation, and if the vacation doesn't calm her down, then we just need to put her in a psychiatric ward. I was stressed because I knew I was dying, and no one seemed to know why, or they didn't believe me when I said I wasn't anorexic. So instead of going on a vacation, I asked my family to send me to Wildwood, which is a lifestyle clinic, because I heard there was a doctor there that really tried to get to the root of a patient's problem, Dr. Sherman. And when I showed up there at Wildwood, I weighed 83 pounds. And fortunately, Dr. Sherman looked at me and said, I believe you when you say you're not anorexic. And I also know you only have a few short days to live. So she really scoured over all of my medical records, asked me all kinds of questions. And what she found out is she said, you know what, Valerie, you've had every medical test under the sun. Not only that, you've had them 2 or 3 times. And she said, but what I've noticed is the basic first test they should have given you, a barium swallow, no one's ever done that. So immediately she signed me up for the nearest hospital for the next day to get a barium swallow. Well, that night before the barium swallow test, I stayed up the entire night praying and claiming promises to God and asking God to forgive me and forgive my life and to please heal me. Because over the last year, throughout this eating disorder, I was praying, God, please heal me. I want to live. I need to live to raise my 2 young daughters. And that was just so important to me that God saved my life so I could raise my 2 young daughters. But at that night, I got down on my knees and I said, God, if it is your will to take my life, fine, I'm ready. I'm fine with that. And I know you can take care of my daughters better than I can. And so I just gave it all to God. And that next morning, I had the peace that surpassed all understanding. And that's how I can explain it, because a light came on. What happened is I remembered that prayer that I had prayed over a year prior and said, God, you're gonna have to motivate me if you want me to follow you closer and live my life for you. And I just realized how much more motivated does a person have to get than spending an entire night on their knees praying and claiming God's promises. And so I just praised God, because what he was doing, he was answering my prayer. Upon arrival, Dr. Sherman told me my test results, and she said, you have the end stages of achalasia. I was just so happy to be vindicated that I was like, I can die happy now, because it's not stress, it's not self-induced. I actually had a problem. And what achalasia is your esophageal sphincter closes up so tight that no food or water can get into your stomach. And you also have very little peristalsis left. And this is where I was. And right after that, Dr. Sherman sent me back to California, to UCLA, to Dr. Epileti, who was a specialist in achalasia. He took one look at me and said, you need surgery. And that surgery meant that he was going to take my sphincter out and recreate a new sphincter from my stomach. Except for he told me, you're definitely not strong enough. You're so emaciated, you will not make it through a surgery. So we have to go to plan B to get your strength up so that you can have this surgery. Plan B actually was where I was put under x-ray for 45 minutes while he took a needle down my esophagus and shot Botox into my sphincter. And this enabled me to eat because it would relax my sphincter once weight of food got onto my sphincter. And so I would go back to Dr. Epileti and say, look, can we do another Botox? Because I wanted to give God that time to heal me and to explain to him that I trusted in him first. And so I actually went through 4 of these Botox procedures, each being exactly 6 months apart. Now, my 4th Botox procedure was actually scheduled 2 days after Christmas. And that's exactly when my previous Botox would stop and I wouldn't be able to eat. So the morning of my procedure, I woke up, said my prayers. And as I was saying my prayers, I said, God, you know that Dr. Epileti told us that this was the last time. I had to have the surgery after this 4th procedure. He wouldn't do it again for me. And so I prayed this, and I don't even know how to explain it, but truly, it wasn't my voice. It was the voice of God, and it was a still, small voice. And I heard God say, you are healed. I woke my husband up and I explained what had happened. He definitely believed me because he knew how intensely I'd been praying for over a year. And he said, I have this real big dilemma though, because January 1st, our insurance was up and we had a $2,000 deductible that we couldn't afford. And also, I couldn't go down and test it. I couldn't see if I was eating, because if I ate anything, I couldn't have the procedure that day. So you know what? We told God, we know you've healed me. I know you've healed me. But I have to be prudent and go down there. And God, because I know you've healed me, now I'm asking you to stop the procedure. And we're gonna go down, and we have faith that you will stop this procedure to make it clear to everyone that I've been healed. And once we got down there, God miraculously stopped it, because I was prepped for the procedure, and my doctor came in, Epilepsy, and said, we don't have any Botox. We ordered it, we don't know where it is. We just started laughing, and the doctor was just like appalled that we were laughing over this. And he goes, not to worry, and we're like, we're not. And my husband told him, he said, you know what, you're not gonna find any Botox anywhere. And he goes, oh yeah, we will. A little bit later, he came into my room and said, definitely looking very upset, and he came in and said, we've called around all the hospitals in California. We called the manufacturers. They're closed because it's Christmas holiday. We can't find Botox anywhere. And so my husband and I walked out of that hospital laughing. I got in the car and said, find the nearest restaurant, which happened to be a spaghetti factory. And I ate spaghetti, and I've been eating ever since, because I waited on God and God healed me. After 4 years of eating, you would think that I would be healthy, but actually I was so much worse off. My immune system was shot. I had all kinds of problems. I had rheumatoid arthritis, low immune system, real bad case of rosacea, yeast infections, reoccurring urinary infections. Everyone thought I was the biggest hypochondriac ever. But the sicker I got, the stricter I got with my diet, because I know the Creator created our bodies that they would be able to heal themselves. So the sicker I got, I just got to the point where I was all raw. I was eating a raw vegan diet, and I did this to detoxify and clean my body out. And also, when you eat raw and you don't cook your foods, you're getting all the natural enzymes and all the vitamins and minerals and all the phytochemicals that the food has. And so I did that for 3 straight months. And at the end of the 3 months, I actually didn't feel any better. You're thinking I would feel fabulous. No, I didn't feel any better, but I held on and I kept it up. And one morning I woke up and said, I can't go to church. I'm feeling so bad. I'll have lunch for you when you get home. And so my family took off, and the next thing I remember, I fell back asleep. And when I woke up, I was in the hospital. And my family was looking over me, and the doctor said, honey, you're gonna feel better than you have in years. And I actually did. I kind of felt normal again. And what had happened is that I had a brain tumor and didn't even realize it, didn't even know it. And a doctor saw me in the hospital when I only had minutes to live and knew exactly what was wrong. She was a neurologist, happened to be walking by, and saved my life. And brain tumor, the doctors say that the only thing that they can figure is that I actually got the brain tumor because I had unchecked gestational diabetes. And when you have unchecked gestational diabetes, that's when you're pregnant, you have these real hard labors, and that you have such pressure from giving birth that it causes brain tumors. And so 2 neurosurgeons, after all this happened, and looked at my case, both of them said, because you were on that all raw food diet, we believe that's what dissolved the brain tumor. And if I would have listened to the doctors and taken the drugs that they prescribed for my rheumatoid arthritis, for my back pains and my yeast and urinary infections, I wouldn't have been searching to heal my body naturally. I would never have probably gone on the raw food diet. I probably wouldn't have stuck it out either. And I know without a doubt that's why I was able to dissolve the brain tumor. And so I give diet all the glory and God for saving my life from having this brain tumor that I didn't even know I had. It was actually encased around the pituitary, and the lack of pituitary function is what caused all the symptoms for all these years that I had. So I truly and strongly advocate that people go on a healthy diet and eliminate processed foods, take the toxins out of your bodies, get rid of drugs whenever possible, and eat as raw as possible, and eat natural, wholesome, and fresh, delicious food. It does take a little bit more to prepare, but your health is worth it. 4 years later, I got in a car accident, major car accident. I was going 70 miles an hour. Someone hit me almost head on, going faster than me. Totaled my car, and I actually recovered pretty quickly from that accident. And a year later, I had a massive esophageal spasm, unrelated to the car accident. It actually is a cause from the achalasia. I have one about every other day, but I can drink cold water, it goes away instantly. But every couple of years, I'll get a spasm that lasts for hours, and the pain is beyond describable. Finally, I said, take me to the hospital, have them knock me out. I don't care what they do to me, just get me admitted and have them take care of me. And so when we're in the hospital, of course, they find out about my pre-existing brain tumor that I had, and they said, we need to do another MRI on you. I was fine. I didn't care, as long as they were taking care of my esophagus problem. But the funny thing is, the doctor came back and said, we're really sorry to tell you, the MRI shows that you have a big mass in the original spot where the tumor was. And I'm like, I'm here for my esophagus. But I find out that I actually had a brain cyst this time, probably due to that car accident is what the surgeon figures. Anyway, it's a cyst, and believe it or not, brain cysts are worse than brain tumors because they grow. And this one happened to be under my optic nerve. So I ended up with a neurosurgeon, Dr. Schweitzer, fabulous neurosurgeon anyway, and he said I immediately needed brain surgery to take care of this brain cyst. He said, it's amazing that you didn't lose your eyesight right now because how big it was, and it was growing. And he said, it's amazing you haven't just been walking along and just dropped over dead. He goes, we need to get you in for brain surgery. And I said, you know what? I need to give God time to heal this. And he reluctantly gave me 3 months that I could do another raw food diet, which I did. I did the raw food diet, but it was in the winter time, and so I ate yams and beans and some grains and stuff. And what really was the cool part about that experience is that I asked God to give me the peace that surpasses all understanding, because I knew that at any time I could drop over dead or lose my sight. But you know what? God granted that to me. For those 3 months, I never once thought about that surgery and never once thought about, oh, I could just drop over dead. But I did end up going back 3 months later, and the surgeon said, you know, the cyst is still there. We're gonna have to do brain surgery. And I said, okay, but I wanna do it without drugs. But I didn't quite eat all raw either because it was the winter time and I like warm foods. And so I ate yams and beans and brown rice with my raw food. When I got back to the surgeon 3 months later, he said, I'm sorry, you still have the cyst, we have to do surgery. And I'm like, okay, as long as I can do it without drugs. And he was like really excited because he said, you know, I've never had anyone that would actually do it without pain medicine. He goes, I'm kind of excited. And I said, well, you've got someone now. We had the surgery. I was knocked out actually for the surgery itself, but had no pain medicines afterwards. And he actually went up the nose for the surgery and drilled a hole at the top of the cyst. And basically that's all I needed. And because I didn't take any pain medicines after for recovery, by the 4th day after surgery, I was back on my job at home, on my job. And so I do believe that without the drugs, I was able to recover very, very rapidly. What I learned from this is that even in our darkest times, in our most painful moments in life, and mine was having that extreme esophageal spasm for hours, I didn't think I was going to make it. We need to still praise God, because if I would not have had that spasm, I wouldn't have gone to the hospital, I wouldn't have had the MRI, and like my surgeon told me, he said without that MRI, you would have been walking along and probably just fallen over dead. So we need to praise God because He takes us through things because He knows the beginning from the end. So I just want to praise God. Well, 2 months after my brain surgery, I woke up with fluid running out of my nose. Actually, I found out a little bit later that it was spinal fluid. By the time I got to my neurosurgeon, he said, "You've got to have surgery now." And he was going to do a second brain surgery, but this time he couldn't go through the nose. He had to take off half my skull, go through my brain, through my octave nerve, to patch up the bottom of the cyst. And I said, what was the risk? Well, the risk, you could possibly go blind or die on the surgery table. You know, and I said, okay, how long can I go with spinal fluid running out my nose? And my surgeon said, oh no, not that God thing again. And I said, yes, I need to know. And he said, look, I'm gonna give you 24 hours. And if God stops the fluid from running out of your nose, he said, there's a second procedure we can do. He said, it's not fun. Actually, it's a lot more painful and more traumatic than brain surgery. And I said, we're going for it. So I had a lot of family and friends and people I didn't even know were praying for me. And God came through. The fluid stopped because I waited on God. I do trust surgeons, I do trust doctors, but I needed to wait on God first. And the fluid stopped. So I was able to get that second procedure. What actually happened is that he took me and drained all the spinal fluid out of my head, and my brain actually kind of sunk into my neck. And this way, it would allow those two patches at the bottom of the cyst to adhere again. So for 8 days, he had drained all the spinal fluid out of my head. My brain had gone into my neck a little bit, and I had an excruciating headache that there's no way, unless you experience it, you will ever be able to comprehend what I was going through. With no spinal fluid, the pressure in your head, I couldn't even close my eyelids without feeling like my whole head was exploding. And I did this with 8 days. I did take morphine one time in that 8-day period. But I truly believe, because I went through this excruciating pain, and it did heal, and the patches at the bottom of the cyst did adhere, and but because I didn't do the drugs throughout that 8-day process, that I was actually back to work the following day. And I was still traumatized, but I definitely was feeling just fine. Following a healthy diet is what got me through a huge amount of health problems. Major health problems like a tumor and a brain cyst and all my things that were related to this. And I truly believe that diet is so important. And you know, when you get older in life and you're going through a lot of health problems, it's harder to change an eating habit that you've had your entire life. So I encourage people to start their children eating a healthy diet, not just every once in a while, but daily, that when they grow up, they can be healthy and not have to deal with disease and hardships. So this is why my daughter and I have created ValMar Health, because we truly believe in inspiring, encouraging, teaching, and motivating each other. We can all learn from each other to be healthier. And I challenge you today to take one thing and add it or take it away from your life that'll help you to be healthier. Because Health is absolutely everything.